All right, so the first review section that we are doing is solving one-step linear equations. Reminder that we're always going to do the opposite. What is the opposite of adding? Good. What's the opposite of dividing? Good. What's the opposite of adding? And dividing? Right? It's just the opposite I said earlier. All right, so that's all you're going to do. You're always going to do the opposite. All right, so let's look at number 1. On number 1, I have x minus 7 equals 16. What is the opposite of subtracting 7? Adding 7. So you're going to add 7 to both sides. So we're going to have x equals, what is 16 plus 7? What do we get when we add 16 and 7? 23. Okay. All right, when you're ready, we'll go to the next one. Next one is n plus 12 equals negative 5. We're going to get rid of the number next to the variable. So we're trying to get rid of the 12. This is adding, so the opposite is subtracting. We're going to subtract 12. What is negative 5 minus 12? M equals negative 17. And if you haven't noticed, anytime we take that number and we do the opposite, those are going to cancel out. Okay? So let's try the next one. K plus 31 equals 10. So what number am I going to try to get rid of? 31. The opposite of adding is subtracting. So we're going to subtract 31 from both sides. The 31s cancel out. What is 10 minus 31? Negative 21. Good. All right. All right, so let's see what we did here. If I have x plus 8 minus 5, what did y'all do to get rid of the 8? Subtracted it. Good. The 8s should cancel out. What did y'all get for your x value? Negative 13. All right, let's go to B. On B, we have n minus 15 equals 3. What did we do to the 15? Add the 15. Make sure you do it to both sides. You're always going to do it to both sides. Right, got to balance it out. N is equal to 18. Good job. All right, let's do the last one. M minus 9 equals 13. What did we get rid of? The 9 by doing what? Adding. So we're going to add 9 to both sides. 13 plus 9 gives us 22. Good. Now, the bottom box, the one we didn't fill in, you could use, if you want to do it, you can. You can always check your answers. For instance, here we said m was 22, so I'm going to take this formula and I'm going to plug in my 22 specifically for the m. So I'm going to write 22 minus 9 should equal 13. And it does. And if it equals the same thing, then you did it correctly. Okay? So on the back side, the front side was adding and subtracting. The back side is going to be the multiplying and the dividing ones. Okay? So if I look at letter A here, I have 4D equals 36. What operation is happening when we look at 4D? Multiplication. What's the opposite of multiplying? Dividing. You divide by the number next to that variable. So here, your D will be equal to what? 9. Okay, and like I said, we can plug it in and we can check our answers if we'd like. All right, let's check B. Negative 7D equals 91. Again, negative 7D is multiplying. What is the opposite? Dividing. Divide both sides by negative 7. 91 divided by negative 7. What do we get? Negative 13. Good. All right. That was the multiplying, right? They were multiplying. The opposites were dividing. So now we're going to do the opposite. Now we have the dividing, and we're going to do the opposite. What's the opposite of dividing? Multiplying. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to rewrite this so it looks a little friendlier to work with. I'm going to carry the negative to the top. I'm going to put negative t over 8. All I did was move the negative with the number on top. That's all I did. Okay? Equals negative 7. Now this is negative t divided by 8. What's the opposite of dividing? Multiplying. So we're going to multiply both sides by 8. These 8s are going to cancel out. They're no longer there. Okay? We have a negative t left. What is negative 7 times 8? Negative 56. Now, who can tell me, does anyone remember what we do when we have a negative variable? Technically, it's a negative 1t. What did we say the operation was when we have a number in front of the variable? What was that? Multiplication. Well, same thing here. I have a negative 1t, so I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 1. All that's going to do, it's going to change the sign of that number. So if it's a negative, it becomes a positive. Or you could remember that a negative by a negative is always a positive, okay? So we're going to have t equals positive 56, okay? All right, we're going to do another one. The next one does not have a negative, okay? Only the negative will have that extra step at the end where you're dividing by negative 1. All it does is change the sign. All right, let's try one more. Let's try D. This one, it's already set up. We don't have to rewrite it. X divided by 5. The opposite of dividing is to multiply. So multiply both sides by 5. Now, last period, I had somebody just got really confused. Now, we could just go straight from this step to the next one, right, without doing one in between. But I'm going to do the one in between just so you understand why it's happening. 5 times x is 5x. And then carry the 5 at the bottom. Negative 8 times 5 is negative 40. These 5s are going to cancel out. So you just have x equals negative 40. You could also cancel out the 5s up here. And you can cancel them out here and just say, all I have left is an x. And just say x equals negative 40. But if you want to do the step here in the middle, you can do so, just so you understand why we're only left with the x. Okay? All right, so I'm going to have you try the next 4. You have 2 multiplying and 2 dividing, okay? So I'll leave this up in case you didn't get it. Do you need me to flip over to the front side? So the first one has 5g equals 35. What did we do to get that g by itself? Divide by 5. So your g is equal to 7. All right, let's look at B. Negative g equals negative 50, equals 50, not negative 50, 50. What do we want to do to both sides? Divide by negative 5 again. Good. So g is equal to negative 10. Good. Next one. So the next one was the one with the negative. That's if anything gave you trouble and you kind of remembered everything, this is probably the only one that did. I know some of us might have struggled with other ones, but this one does seem to catch some kids every year. So we rewrite it, right? We have the negative c over 6 equals 8. The first step would have been to do what here? Multiply by 6. Good. 8 times 6 is 48. And then divide both sides by negative 1, right? So your c is equal to negative 48. Another way you can do this, and I know some of you already have, you can rewrite it. Instead of rewriting it like this, you can put the negative at the bottom. You can put c equals negative 6 equals 8. So that when you multiply, you get rid of that negative from the beginning. So these cancel out, you're automatically left with negative 48. So you could do that. The reason I didn't show you that first, and that's going to happen a lot, I won't show you any shortcuts until after you really understood the whole reason why, right? The reason I wanted to show it to you, though, is because you may see this on future problems, and I need you to understand to get rid of a negative, it's always to divide by the negative 1, okay? So let's do the last one. So on this one, what do we need to do to get rid of the 12? Multiply by 12. Good. 7 times 12 is 84. Good. All right.